Hello Pixies, and welcome back to my channel. It's Zoe here, and today I have for you a video that's more of a chatty one and not really talking about any books in particular, and I don't think I've done a video like that yet. But today we are going to be discussing my bookish red flags. Now, what I mean by this is that if I see these things, before I start reading a book, or when I'm looking at books that I think I might be interested in, or just looking at how other people talk about them online, then these things let me know that this book probably isn't going to be, for me, my favorite. And that is totally okay. Not every book is meant for every person. So this video comes with a disclaimer. And just because I don't like these things doesn't mean that they are necessarily bad. Everyone has their own preferences, and these are aligned with my preferences, and everyone likes different things. So if you love these things, then you're gonna love books that I probably don't love, and that is totally okay. So now let's just hop in to the video. And my first bookish red flag is when the description is written in first person. This is not saying that I don't like first person. I think first person books can be done very well, but I do not like it when the description is written in the first person. Whenever the description of books are written in the first person, I tend not to like them because it aggravates me a bit, because I feel like I'm not really giving the overarching what the story is going to give me. It's just giving me character, and that's what the book is for, not the description, in my opinion. The next bookish red flag I have is when AI is used in cover art, as well as when there's real person Photoshop involved. That just tells me that you either didn't care enough to pay an artist if you're self-publishing, or if this is a traditionally published book, that means they didn't really care to give you the budget in order to have a real artist design it. And I feel like using AI in your cover art cheapens your writing, because it's saying that oh, you should buy my books, even though there's, written AI generators out there that will write for you, but you should respect my craft, but I won't respect anyone else's craft in order to get cover art. And if it is a big company that's doing this, then that's a whole other thing. I don't think companies that care about artists or work with artists at all should be using any of these artistic AI things. And the real person Photoshop, it doesn't look good. It's kind of weird. Why is there a real person on the cover? That gives me the major ick. And I know a lot of romance books are like that, and those aren't really my favorite anyway, and that just alerts me, hey, this ain't for you, girl. This ain't for you. The next thing that bothers me is insta-love relationships. I love a good romance. Fantasy romance, romantic fantasy. I like those specifically because I am a fantasy girl at heart. I don't love instant romance where they meet them and they're just oh my god, I'm in love with you, and they're just all about each other. I like tension. I enjoy pining. I enjoy, them not really quite knowing their feelings, or their feelings not really being known to them until later. They feel things, but they think it's because of something else. And a good example of that is A Dark and Drowning Tide. They are not insta-love, but they are entirely obsessed with each other, which is why when the romance comes later, it feels very natural. I like it when it takes a little while for the romance to start. It needs build-up, it needs tension, it needs these things to make it good, so when they're together, you're just oh my god, finally they're together and they're in love and everything is great. But when they just fall in love immediately, that just makes it so there's no satisfaction in the romance that way. And to go along with that, when books have insta-love with enemies to lovers. Enemies to lovers needs steps, and it's gotta be drawn out. You cannot do enemies to lovers in one book. I said it. It's just not possible, because you need so many steps in order to go from enemies to lovers. Now, there can be mistakes, or thinking that you're enemies or rivals, because there's a very thin line between love and hate, but true enemies to true lovers, you need a lot of steps there, and I feel like most books that are marketed as enemies to lovers, or that people are like, oh, it's enemies to lovers and it's so great, the romance honestly isn't that great at the end of the day. So that's like a connecting thing to that thing that just alerts me, hey, this is not for you, because I enjoy the pining. I enjoy the long suffer in order to get what you want. Another thing that really bothers me and that alerts me, this probably isn't going to be my favorite book, when things are listed in the descriptions, like specific events are listed in the description, but then they do not happen until a good chunk into the book. If it is listed in the description, it's a very specific thing and not just kind of general or like the overarching thing, but a very specific event is listed, then it needs to happen quickly because you already know it's going to happen. The example of this is In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. I was really looking for this book, sci-fi Pinocchio retelling. It was checking all the boxes in the description. It specifically says when his father is taken away, you know, he has to go on this adventure with all these other side characters to go rescue him. But this event, and I don't believe this is a spoiler because it's listed in the description, this event doesn't happen until over 150 pages into the book. But you know it's going to happen that entire 150 pages. And so it's just like, why couldn't this just happen sooner? Like, why did you need all these words? Like, 150 pages is a lot of words at the end of the day. Why did you need all these words to get to the point that's listed in the description? If all those 150 words are necessary, then that event should not be listed in the description. But then what would you put in the description? I have no idea, but it really bothers me when things are listed in the description and then they don't happen for a good chunk of the book. The problem with that one is that you really can't tell that's going to happen until you're reading the book. And that really sucks because it makes me dislike the book even more than I already did. My last little bookish red flag is one that is unfortunately pretty common these days with how the book industry is going, and that is really marketing the book based on comparisons and tropes. This is enemies to lovers. This, you know, is tournament style. This is blank and blank. This is for readers who enjoyed this book and this book. This is for readers who enjoyed this and this. And I just don't really love it as marketing because, like, while other people are inspired by books, and I have a series on my channel about books that are being just like, oh, if you enjoyed this, here's what other readers enjoy, or maybe try this. But those aren't by the book company. While that can be good for some things, I don't think every single book needs it because every single book doesn't need to be inspired by another book. And also marketing tropes, I feel like just gives away a bit of the story. I don't really want to know if a book is enemies to lovers or not, or rivals to lovers, or if it's a chosen one. I want to figure it out myself in the process of reading the book. But if you go into a book knowing that a specific trope is going to be present, then I feel like it kind of takes away from the story a little bit because you already know what's going to happen. So then kind of what's the point in reading it? So it kind of takes away from plot twist as well. And I hope I really described that one well because that one really quite bothers me. Things can stand on their own and you don't need to know what tropes are in books in order to read them, because you could be like, oh, but I love this trope. Yeah, you can love that trope, but also you can love other books too. And honestly, are you really loving books based on their tropes or based on the storytelling and the characters? I really hope this trend ends rather soon. That wraps up my bookish red flags video. Tell me down in the comments below if you agree with any of mine, if you have any of your own that's just like, oh, if you see this in marketing or when reading descriptions or when reading books, this tells you this book isn't for you. As I said at the beginning, if you disagree on me with any of these, that is totally okay. Everyone has different tastes when it comes to reading, and my bookish red flags may just be your bookish green flags. Be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna love this book, and I love that for you because I feel like every book is someone's favorite book, and that is the magic of reading. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. You can also subscribe to see other videos that I'm going to be posting this month because I have quite a few coming your way. So I guess I'm signing off now. Okay, bye.